You don't really know what you lost until you're standing outside the gate, asking to be let back in. That's what I thought as I watched the live camera feed on my phone, the little green night vision glow outlining two familiar faces at the bottom of my long driveway. A man I once rocked to sleep, and the woman who taught him how to forget I existed. The iron gate at the front of my property was quiet, the kind of quiet you pay for when you move far enough from your old life. My new home sat back nearly a quarter-mile from the road, lights warm behind tall windows, the stone walkway swept clean, the hedges trimmed the way I liked them. Everything orderly, everything mine. And yet, there they were, shifting from foot to foot like strangers at a wrong address. Ethan kept glancing toward the street, his hands in his pockets, shoulders rounded like he was trying to disappear. Brittany stood closer to the keypad, dabbing her eyes with the corner of a tissue, the same kind of practiced softness she used to wear at church potlucks and neighborhood cookouts. Even through a screen, I could see her mouth tighten when the gate didn't open on its own. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and looked around. Silver trays waiting under linen covers. A row of sparkling water bottles lined up like little soldiers. Roses in glass vases catching the light. My dining room table had place cards arranged with neat, careful handwriting. Tonight mattered. Tonight was my charity gala, the first one I was hosting in my own home, and I had planned every detail down to the last votive candle. It was 6:17 p.m. Guests would arrive at 7:30. The caterer had already confirmed the final head count. A jazz trio was scheduled to start at 8 o'clock, soft enough to let people talk, beautiful enough to make them stay. I should have been thinking about the speeches, the silent auction, the check-in table by the foyer. Instead, I kept hearing a different clock. 12 years. 12 years since Ethan stopped calling. 12 years since my birthday cards came back stamped return to sender, like I was the one who had moved away from love. 12 years since I sat in my old living room with a plate of untouched cake, staring at my phone as if it might suddenly remember my name. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain just an inch. From here the gate was only a shadow in the distance, but the porch lights made my front steps glow like a promise. The kind of promise I stopped making to people who didn't keep theirs. My doorbell didn't ring. Of course it didn't. They hadn't earned the right to knock. Brittany pressed the intercom button again, then again, and finally her voice came through the speaker, sweet as iced tea. Margaret? It's us. We just want to talk. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence sit there. I let it breathe, because for the first time in 12 years I wasn't the one begging to be heard. I watched the small speaker on the wall like it might grow teeth and bite me. Brittany's voice had always been like that, smooth enough to slip past people's better judgment. Margaret, she said again, softer this time, as if volume could replace history. Ethan stood behind her, half a step back, his eyes darting toward the camera dome on the post. He knew I could see him. He knew I was choosing not to open the gate. I rested my palm on the cool granite of the counter and let myself remember something simple and true. I did not owe them an immediate answer. In my old life I would have rushed. I would have wiped my hands on a dish towel, hurried to the door, let hope pull me forward like a leash. Hope used to be my reflex. Now it was a choice and I chose caution. Outside, Brittany pressed her tissue to her cheek and tilted her head, performing sorrow for an audience of one. We drove a long way, she said, and I almost laughed at the way she made it sound like effort was the same as love. My driveway was long, yes, but it was not longer than 12 years of silence. I walked to the foyer mirror and studied my own face for a moment. The woman looking back at me had fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the kind you earn from years of squinting into bright days and biting back words at dark dinners. My hair was silver now, styled the way I liked. It not the way anyone else preferred. I looked like someone who had learned how to stand upright without leaning on anyone's approval. The intercom chimed again. Ethan's voice came through, lower, uncertain. Mom, please. That one word landed in my chest like a pebble dropped into still water. Not a splash. A ripple. I closed my eyes and saw him at 7 years old, holding my hand in the grocery store, begging for cereal with the toy in the box. I saw him at 16, awkward in his first suit, asking me if the tie looked straight. I saw him at 28, standing beside Brittany at their wedding, smiling like he believed the future was something you could control. Then I saw the first time my calls went to voicemail. The first holiday photo posted online with no mention of me. The first time I heard, through someone else, that my granddaughter had a dance recital and I was not invited. The ripples became waves, and I steadied myself by breathing in the scent of roses and warm bread from the kitchen. My home smelled like care, like planning, like dignity. I picked up my phone and tapped the gate controls without opening anything. The camera zoomed a little closer, bringing their faces into sharper focus. Brittany's mascara was not running. Her nails were freshly done. Ethan's jacket looked too thin for the evening chill, and I wondered if he had grabbed it in a hurry. "You can speak," I said into the intercom, my voice calm even. Brittany's shoulders relaxed with relief, as if a single word from me erased the years. "Thank goodness," she breathed. "We just want to reconnect. We miss you." I let the quiet return for a beat. Then I asked gently the question I never used to ask out loud. "What do you need?" Brittany did not answer my question right away, which was answer enough. She made a small sound like a sigh, then switched to a warmer tone, the one people use when they want something to sound like a gift. "We do not need anything," she said quickly. "We just want to see you. We heard you were doing well." The words sat there, polished and empty. Heard. Not new. Not checked on. Not asked. Heard like gossip travels faster than kindness. Ethan leaned toward the speaker. "Mom, we have been thinking about you," he said. His voice cracked on the last word, and for a second it was almost convincing, almost boyish, almost my son. Then Brittany cut in again, as smooth as ever. "We drove all the way from Cedar Ridge," she added, naming the town like it was proof of devotion. Cedar Ridge was a little over 2 hours away. I used to drive farther than that for a single parent-teacher conference for a neighbor's child, because the neighbor was working and needed help. 2 hours did not impress me. 12 years did. I looked at the clock on my stove. 6:24. In my mind I could already see the first guests arriving early, stepping onto my front porch with wrapped auction items and bright smiles. I could not let chaos wander into the middle of what I had built. Not tonight. Especially not tonight. "You cannot come inside," I said, calm and plain. Brittany's face tightened on the camera feed, just for a flash, before she corrected it into a wounded expression. "Margaret, please," she whispered, as if we were close enough for whispers. "It is cold out here." The night air was in the low 40s. Uncomfortable, not cruel. Ethan rubbed his hands together and looked down the driveway again. I could almost see the calculation happening behind Brittany's eyes, weighing charm against time, deciding which one would work faster. I kept my voice steady. "There is a covered patio by the guest house," I said. "If you want to talk, you can park in the turnaround. I will meet you there." Ethan's head lifted like he was surprised I was offering anything at all. Brittany nodded quickly, relief pouring into her posture. "Thank you," she said, too sweet. "Thank you so much." I did not open the gate yet. I watched them for another long beat. They were dressed like people trying to look respectable without trying too hard. Brittany's coat was new, the kind of beige that photographs well. Ethan's shoes were scuffed at the toe. A small detail, but it told a story. When you have stability, you replace shoes before the scuffs become a habit. When you are sliding, you pretend the scuffs do not matter. I pressed the button and the gate began to glide open, slow and quiet. They stepped through like they belonged there. And something inside me stayed very still. Not angry. Not shaking. Just clear. I put my phone in my pocket and walked toward the back hallway where my patio doors faced the guest house. As I moved, my heels made soft clicks on the hardwood, a sound that used to belong to confident women in movies. Now it belonged to me. Outside, their car rolled up the drive, headlights sweeping over the trimmed lawn and the stone fountain, and I saw Brittany's face tilt toward the house like she was already picturing herself inside. I did not rush to greet them. I did not smooth anything for them. I simply reached for my shawl, took one slow breath and reminded myself again. When people return after years of silence, it is rarely because they suddenly found their heart. It is usually because they found a door they want opened. I met them at the covered patio by the guest house, where the lights were soft and warm and nothing about the space invited anyone to get too comfortable. A small outdoor sofa sat near a fire table that was not lit, 2 chairs angled toward each other like a polite conversation, and a tidy row of potted rosemary that made the air smell clean. I stayed standing. Brittany noticed immediately. She always noticed what she could use. "This place is beautiful," she said, letting the word beautiful stretch out like a compliment and a claim at the same time. Ethan walked a step behind her, his hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes flicking over the stonework in the landscaped path. He looked like a man trying to remember the right version of his mother, the one he could speak to without consequences. Brittany clasped her hands together and gave me that wide, grateful smile. "We have missed you so much," she said. Her voice was careful, gentle. It reminded me of the way she used to talk when neighbors were within earshot, when she wanted to be seen as the kind of woman who would never do anything unkind. I nodded once, slow. 12 years is a long time to miss someone without calling, I said. Ethan's shoulders tightened. Brittany blinked, then laughed softly as if I had made a joke. "Life gets busy," she replied. "You know how it is. Busy." I felt that word tug at old memories, like a thread snagged on a nail. Busy was what they told me when I asked about Thanksgiving. Busy was what they said when I mailed gifts and never got a thank you. Busy was what I heard through my sister when I found out my granddaughter had a dance recital, and there was a full row of family in the picture, smiling, with one empty space where I should have been. I did not say any of that out loud. I did not need to. My silence did more work than my anger ever did. Ethan finally looked at me, really looked, and his face shifted like he was seeing the distance between us for the first time. "Mom," he said, and his voice sounded small. "I am sorry." Brittany's hand slid to his arm, not comforting him, guiding him. She turned back to me with another careful expression. "We want to fix things," she said. "We want to be a family again." Family. The word used to feel like Sunday dinners and handwritten recipes. Now it felt like paperwork, like obligations people dragged out when they needed something signed. I glanced past them toward the main house. Through the trees I could see the glow of my dining room lights. In less than an hour, people who had shown up for me would be laughing under those lights, holding auction paddles, asking about the scholarship fund I helped build. People who knew my name because they took the time to learn it. Brittany followed my gaze and stepped closer, lowering her voice as if she was sharing something intimate. "We heard about your event tonight," she said. "It is amazing what you have done." There it was again. Heard. Not asked. Not offered help. Just heard. She smiled wider. "Maybe we can come inside," she added. "Just for a little while. It would mean so much." Ethan swallowed hard. "Please," he said, and this time he did not look at the house. He looked at me. I held his eyes for a beat, feeling something old try to rise, the instinct to rescue him from discomfort. Then I let it pass. "You can sit," I said, gesturing to the chairs. "You can talk. But you cannot go inside." Brittany's smile stayed in place, but her eyes cooled just a fraction. And in that fraction I saw the truth. They were not here because they suddenly understood my pain. They were here because they had seen my lights on from a distance and decided my life looked like shelter. Brittany sat first, crossing her legs neatly, placing her purse beside her like it deserved its own chair. Ethan sat more slowly, elbows on his knees, hands clasped as if he was trying to hold himself together. I stayed standing, my shawl wrapped around my shoulders, the patio light catching the silver in my hair. The night air carried the scent of rosemary and damp stone, and somewhere beyond the trees I could hear the faint hum of the main house, the quiet preparations that had nothing to do with them. Brittany looked up at me with that practiced softness again. "We have been talking about you a lot," she said. "About how wrong it was that things got so distant." Distant. She always picked words that sounded accidental, like a road you missed on a trip, like a phone call that slipped your mind, not like a door that was locked on purpose. Ethan swallowed and cleared his throat. "Mom, I know you are upset," he said. "I should have called. I should have come by." His eyes glistened, and for a moment my chest tightened because I remembered the boy he was, the one who used to run to the porch when I came home, the one who used to hold my grocery bags without being asked. But then Brittany leaned forward, her voice lowering into something more intimate, and the mood shifted like a curtain being pulled. "We are here now," she said. "We want to make things right." She paused, then added like it was an afterthought, "And we heard you have been very blessed." There was that word again, heard, as if my life was a story passed around by people who never bothered to ask if I was okay. I did not answer. I watched her fingers as she smoothed the edge of her coat, as if she could iron out awkwardness with her nails. Margaret, she continued, you know we have had a hard year. Ethan flinched almost imperceptibly, like he had heard that line rehearsed too many times. Brittany sighed and looked off into the darkness, as if the night itself could testify on her behalf. There have been some unexpected expenses, she said carefully. You know life. Things happen. I waited. In the space between her sentences, I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and calm. I could also hear the quiet truth that had taken me years to accept. When people come back with vague sadness, they are usually walking towards something specific. Ethan finally spoke again, quieter. We just need some help getting back on our feet, he admitted, and the words sounded like they hurt him to say. Brittany shot him a quick look, a flash of irritation. Then she recovered and reached for his hand, squeezing it for the camera that was not there. Not just money, she corrected quickly, too quickly. Support. Guidance. Family. Family again, as if family was a tool you could pick up when you needed leverage. I looked at Ethan, really looked. His jaw was tense, his cheeks slightly hollow, the stubble on his chin uneven like he had been too tired to care. He looked like a man carrying a weight he did not know how to set down. Brittany, on the other hand, looked polished. Not desperate. Not broken. Just eager. I let a small pause settle over us, long enough for Brittany to shift in her seat. Then I spoke softly, almost kindly. So you did not come because you missed me, I said. You came because you need something. Ethan's face flushed with shame. Brittany's smile stayed on, but it no longer reached her eyes. That is not fair, she said. We can want both. I nodded once. You can, I agreed. But you did not choose both for 12 years. And in that moment the truth sat between us like an unlit fire. They were cold and my warmth was not theirs to claim. I let Brittany's words hang in the air without rushing to soften them. The old version of me would have hurried to make everyone comfortable, would have offered tea and reassurance and a quick promise to fix whatever was broken. That version of me believed love was proven by how much you were willing to absorb. I learned slowly and painfully that being endlessly available does not make you valued. Just makes you convenient. Ethan's shoulders sagged as if my sentence had finally named something he had been trying not to see. He stared at his hands, then up at me, and his voice came out rough. Mom, I know we messed up, he said. Brittany and we made choices. I made choices. Brittany's head snapped toward him, a small, sharp movement. Ethan, she warned, not loud but firm like a leash tug. He flinched and looked away. I watched that exchange with a calm that surprised even me. 12 years ago I would have missed it. I would have been too busy trying to earn my way back into their lives. Now I saw the pattern as clearly as the lines on my own palm. Brittany turned back to me, resetting her face into something gentler. Margaret, you are taking this the wrong way, she said. We are not here to use you. We are here because we realize how important you are. Important. Another word with a shine on it. I could almost hear her practicing it in the car, choosing something that sounded respectful without costing her anything. I kept my voice quiet. If I was important, you would have shown up when there was nothing to gain, I said. You would have visited when I lived in that small house on Maple Street. You would have called when I was sitting alone on Christmas morning. Ethan's eyes widened and he whispered, You were alone? The question stung not because he asked it but because he truly did not know. He had not known because he had not looked. Brittany jumped in quickly, her tone suddenly brighter, almost cheerful, as if seriousness was inconvenient. We cannot change the past, she said. We can only move forward. That is what matters. Move forward. Yes, I had done that. I had moved forward so far that the person standing in front of them now had a different kind of backbone. I stepped closer to the patio table and rested my fingertips on the edge, grounding myself. Do you remember the last time you were in my home? I asked Ethan. He frowned, searching his memory. It was years, he admitted. Brittany answered for him. It was before we got really busy, she said smoothly. I nodded and the night seemed to get quieter, like it was listening too. The last time, I said, was the day you asked me to sign those papers. The ones you said were only for insurance. The ones you wanted me to sign without reading. Ethan's face went pale. Brittany's eyes narrowed just a fraction, and then she smiled again too quickly. That is not fair, she said lightly. We were trying to help you. Help me. The audacity of that word almost made me laugh, but I did not. I simply looked at her and let the truth settle like dust in sunlight. I did not sign, I said. And after that, my calls started going unanswered. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at Brittany like he was seeing the timeline line up for the first time. Brittany's smile wavered, and in that tiny crack, I could see irritation, calculation, and patience. She leaned forward again, her voice turning coaxing. Margaret, she said, we can talk about all of this later. Right now we just need a little help. You have so much. We are family. I held her gaze steady as stone. Family does not erase consequences, I said. And tonight I am not your solution. The word solution made Brittany's posture stiffen, like she did not expect me to name the dynamic out loud. Ethan stared at the ground, and the silence between us grew heavy enough to feel like weather. From the main house, faint music testing through speakers drifted across the lawn. A soft saxophone line that sounded like elegance and control. I let that sound remind me of why tonight existed. This home was not a prize I had won by luck. It was something I built after I stopped trying to earn a seat at their table. Brittany cleared her throat and tried a new angle, one that sounded almost reasonable. Margaret, we are not asking for anything outrageous, she said. Just a small bridge. We are in a temporary tight spot. Tight spot. Another vague phrase meant to make me fill in the blanks with generosity. Ethan finally spoke, voice low. The bank sent a notice, he admitted. It is serious. His face was red with embarrassment, and for a moment I felt that old maternal ache, the instinct to pull him back from the edge. But then Brittany leaned in again, and I heard the faint impatience in her breath. We are handling it, she cut in too fast. We just need help with timing. Timing. Not responsibility. Not repentance. Timing. I looked at Ethan. What happened? I asked him, not her. He hesitated, eyes flicking to Brittany like he needed permission to tell the truth. We fell behind, he said. There were some expenses and then my hours got cut. Brittany thought she could. She thought things would turn around. Brittany's smile tightened. Do not make it sound like it is my fault, she said, and the sweetness fell away for a second, revealing something sharper underneath. Then she caught herself and softened again, turning back to me with a sympathetic expression. We have a daughter, she reminded me, as if my granddaughter was a key she could use to unlock my heart. She deserves stability. She deserves family. I did not flinch at the mention of the child. I simply let the truth speak in my mind. You do not get to block a grandmother for 12 years, and then use a child as a ribbon on a request. Ethan's voice wavered. Mom, I know we were wrong, he said. I know I should have fought harder. But we are here now. We are trying. Trying would have been a phone call on my birthday. Trying would have been showing up when my neighbor drove me home from a minor surgery because no one else was there. Trying would have been letting me hold my granddaughter's hand at her school play, instead of hearing about it afterward through someone else's social media post. Brittany shifted in her chair, and her purse slid slightly, revealing a corner of an envelope stuffed inside. I saw a bold logo on the edge, the kind used by law offices and lenders. She noticed my eyes and snapped the purse shut with a quick, controlled motion. That told me everything I needed to know. This was not a visit. This was a meeting. Brittany lifted her chin. Look, she said, dropping the pretense a little more. You have resources. You have a house like this. You are clearly doing well. It would be cruel to watch your own son struggle when you could fix it. Cruel. There it was. The attempt to paint me as the villain for refusing to be used. I kept my voice level. You call it cruel, I said softly. I call it the consequence of choosing to live as though I did not exist. Ethan's eyes filled and he whispered, Mom? Brittany opened her mouth to argue again, but I raised one hand, not in anger, just in quiet control. You came here for money, I said. And you came believing I would feel too guilty to say no. I let the silence settle, steady as the stone beneath my feet. That is not who I am anymore. I did not argue with Brittany. I did not defend myself because I did not need to. I let her last word, cruel, fall to the stone like a penny dropped for attention. Ethan's breathing sounded shallow, like he was trying to swallow something too big. Brittany sat up straighter, waiting for me to fold, waiting for me to apologize for having boundaries. I looked past them toward the faint glow of the main house, where my life was about to fill with people who did not treat love like a transaction. Then I looked back at the two of them and I made a decision that felt clean. I am going to show you something, I said. Brittany's eyes lit up, quick and hungry, like she heard yes inside my sentence. Ethan looked confused, hopeful in a way that made him look younger. Okay, he whispered. Brittany stood immediately, smoothing her coat, already stepping toward the path that led to the main house. I did not move in that direction. I turned toward the guest house instead, where a glass door opened into a small sitting room I kept simple and quiet. No family photos in there. No warm clutter. Just a neat space with a table, a lamp, and the kind of calm that tells you it belongs to someone who does not perform for visitors. This way, I said. Brittany hesitated, then followed, heels clicking, Ethan trailing behind. Inside, I flipped on the lamp and reached into a drawer I had prepared long before tonight. Long before they knew where I lived. I pulled out a thin folder and set it on the table. Brittany's gaze fixed on it. Ethan's brows knit. What is that? He asked. I opened it slowly, not dramatic, just deliberate. This, I said, is what 12 years looks like when you stop pretending it did not happen. Brittany's smile faltered. Inside were printed pages, not to embarrass them, not to punish them, but to anchor reality. A timeline I had made for myself when I finally decided I was done questioning my memory. Dates. Missed holidays. Returned mail. A screenshot of my call log from the year Ethan stopped answering. Page after page of attempts that ended in silence. I did not shove it at them. I simply let it lie there, open where they could see without being forced. Ethan leaned closer, and his face drained of color as he recognized his own number on the pages, the repeated calls, the unanswered ring after unanswered ring. I did not know, he whispered, and his voice broke on the last word. Brittany inhaled sharply. Why would you keep this? She snapped, and the softness was gone now. This is unhealthy. I met her eyes. It was not for you, I said quietly. It was for me. So I would never again let anyone tell me I imagined being shut out. Brittany's mouth tightened, and she reached for the folder as if she could close it like shutting a door. I placed my hand on the table, not touching her, just making my presence unmistakable. She stopped. Ethan's eyes lifted to mine, wet and raw. Mom, I am sorry, he said again. But this time it sounded different, less like a strategy, more like grief. I nodded once. Sorry is the beginning, I said. But it is not a currency. Brittany scoffed. So what, you are going to hold this over our heads forever? She demanded. I kept my voice even. No, I said. I am going to hold it in the light. Because you came here thinking you could rewrite the last 12 years with one visit. You cannot. I closed the folder gently, not like I was slamming a point down, but like I was putting something fragile back where it belonged. The room felt smaller for a moment, filled with things that could not be unsaid. Brittany's arms crossed tight over her coat, her eyes bright with annoyance, as if my memories were an inconvenience. Ethan stayed leaning over the table, staring at the cover of the folder like it was heavier than paper. Outside, the wind brushed the eaves, and from the main house the faint sound of arriving cars began to carry through the trees, doors shutting, soft laughter, the easy noise of people who had shown up because they wanted to be there. Brittany lifted her chin. So what are you going to do? She asked. Just turn us away? Her voice tried to sound offended, but underneath it was fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing access. Ethan straightened slowly. Brittany, he said, and there was a new firmness in him, thin but real. Stop. She whipped her head toward him. Do not do this, she snapped. We came here together. Ethan swallowed hard, then looked at me. Mom, he said. I did not realize how bad it was. I told myself you were fine. I told myself you liked your quiet. I let it be easy for me. He blinked fast and I saw shame, not performance. I am sorry for that. I nodded and the knot in my chest loosened just a little. Thank you for saying it plainly, I said. Truth is the only place a bridge can start. Brittany made a small scoffing sound, like truth was dramatic. We do not have time for therapy speeches, she muttered. We have a deadline. Ethan flinched again, and that single word, deadline, landed like a confession. I did not press for details. I did not need them. I reached into the same drawer and pulled out another envelope, this one already addressed. I set it on the table, closer to Ethan than Brittany. This is the contact information for my attorney, I said. He can help you understand what I will not do. Brittany's eyes widened. Attorney? She repeated, offended. Are you serious? I kept my voice calm. I am serious about boundaries, I said. I will not sign anything. I will not co-sign anything. I will not write a check to cover choices you kept me out of for 12 years. Brittany's face flushed, and she opened her mouth, ready to spill out every accusation she had saved for this moment. Before she could, I added quietly, but I am not without compassion. Ethan's head lifted. Brittany froze. I slid a second card across the table, one with a logo from a local community foundation. Tonight's gala, I said, raises money for emergency housing assistance and job placement in this county. People fall. People get back up. But they do it with honesty, and they do it without using guilt as a crowbar. I looked at Ethan. If you want help, you can apply the right way. You can do the work. You can rebuild your life without taking mine. Ethan stared at the card, then at me, and something in his face softened into a quiet kind of understanding. You are giving me a path, he whispered. Not a rescue. I nodded. A path is what adults walk, I said. Brittany stood abruptly. This is unbelievable, she hissed, grabbing her purse. After everything, you would rather donate to strangers than help your own family. I did not rise to it. I simply met her eyes and spoke the truth she had earned. Strangers did not shut me out, I said. Strangers did not erase me. Brittany's jaw clenched, and she stormed out toward the driveway, heels sharp against the stone. Ethan stayed behind, torn, then finally followed her to the door, stopping at the threshold. He turned back, eyes wet. Mom, he said, can I call you tomorrow? Just to talk. No asking. Just talk. The request was small. Honest. I felt the old ache, but it did not own me. I gave him a single nod. You can call, I said. And if you keep calling, if you keep telling the truth, we will see what can grow. Ethan exhaled like he had been holding his breath for 12 years. Then he stepped out into the night. I watched their car lights sweep away down my long driveway, and when the sound faded, I walked back toward the main house. The porch was glowing. The door opened as my first guests arrived, faces warm, hands full, hearts present. I welcomed them in, and for the first time in a long time, I did not feel shut out of anything at all.